So, Sheila is a naturopathic doctor, integrative physical therapist, clinical nutrition specialist, and a certified functional medicine practitioner by the Institute of Functional Medicine. That's a lot. That took a lot out of. I had to take a deep breath for that. Sheila is very well qualified for what she does. She's worked with patients for 40 years, cultivating a reputation for assessing and treating tough health issues that have previously been unsolved. Dr. Sheila Wagner has a penchant for working with digestive, autoimmune, metabolic, and pain conditions. However, the individual who has a constellation of systems that has confused other practitioners is a perfect match for Dr. Sheila Wagner. So, Sheila, I'm going to turn it all over to you to tell us about our immune resilience and how to live for longevity.
Okay, great, Bob. Now, I shouldn't click the chat now to have the chat window up. No.
You don't have to. So everybody, if you want to have questions in the chat, go ahead and put it in. I'll monitor the chat, so you don't have to worry about it. So
Great, perfect.
you just take control of the presenter mode, and you're the star.
Okay, and let's click play. Okay, so this is really fun because I know so many of you, so it really does feel like family. So I love it. I love it. I already want to come back, Bob, and do it again. I haven't even done this one. Okay, so let's get started. I love it that all of you guys came. Thank you for being so supportive. So yes, Bob told you who I am, and that, yeah, it's been 40 years in healthcare. I'm extremely boring at cocktail parties. I can only talk about healthcare. It's ridiculous. Okay, so today we're talking about immune resilience. And immune resilience, of course, is about really truly living for longevity. And if you talk about the word resilience, what does that really mean? It means to withstand and or to recover quickly from. So this little daisy in the crack of the concrete there, that's a nice picture of immune resilience, right? That little daisy growing up out of a crack of nothing, that's quite resilient. So what I want to say is that, back in the day, being in healthcare for 40 years, there was a time where we really batted the word prevention around. That was a huge word, and I have to say that although the word prevention is part of the naturopathic concepts, the Latin word is called prevenire. And so it's one of our concepts in naturopathic medicine. But the word prevention and the concept and the real true idea of prevention, I have to say, I don't really think it caught on very well. I don't think it carried a lot of weight, except for that era of the health food store kind of person really knew about prevention and practiced it a little bit. But now that I like to really say, prevention is out. The new word for prevention is resilience. And because of COVID-19, of course, that word resilience is now more meaningful to literally everyone, whatever gender, whatever age group, you name it. It is of interest to everyone now. And this talk is not about COVID-19, but you're going to hear me mention it, of course, because that's the pervasive theme that we're all going through at the moment. All right, so there's some basic concepts that I want to convey to you. And those are, sorry, I'm just trying to figure out my screen here. If you want to become more immune resilient moving forward and on into your life, it's really nice to know, where am I starting? What is my immune resilience now? What is my starting point right now? So it's that idea of, where am I going? And if I need to know how far that is, well, where are you starting? What kind of work or distance or time or effort do you need to put in to get to where you want to go? So very much a measuring point is where are you starting from? So moving on now. Why is this not? Oh, here we go. Okay, so similar to the idea of where you're starting, it's also, where have I been? Where's my immune system been? What's the history of my immune system? how has it been and how has it performed historically? Has your immune system been an underperformer, an overperformer? Has it been a mixed performance, or do you really not know? That's just too odd of a concept, perhaps, for some of you, and that's okay. So, for example, inflammation in general, chronic, constant inflammation, rashes and allergies, those are examples of an overperforming immune system. Colds and flus that keep coming back, that are repetitive, infections that are still there, and they're episodic, meaning, oh, it was gone for a month, but now it's back, etc. That is an underperforming immune system. So some of you might relate to that. Now, autoimmune conditions, they are classically known to be a hypervigilant or an upregulated immune system. And yes, that is largely true, but an autoimmune condition is also a condition, a situation where there's a mixed immune response. So the modulation and responsiveness of the immune system is very, very mixed and haphazard and all over the place. And granted, we don't want that, right? We want a very balanced, responding immune system that is supposed to respond when it should, and not too responsive when it shouldn't be. So let's take my slide advancer. Is not working very, oh, well, let me go back. Okay, there we go. So another basic concept is, do you have a pro-inflammatory lifestyle? So when we talk about the responsiveness and the current status of your immune system, this is almost synonymous, but still different, but same. Meaning, do you have a lot of chronic inflammation going on, and you live an inflammatory lifestyle? So some clues and cues that you might have: ongoing inflammation, therefore ongoing immune responsiveness and vigilance that's too much, which then weakens your immune system over time. Chronic heartburn, chronic swollen and painful joints. Are you overweight? Being overweight is a chronic inflammatory state. And some of you might say, well, I don't get that. I've never heard that before. And the truth is that extra weight that we carry in our bellies, belly fat, that's a very special kind of fat. And it is a fat that has its own chemistry, very different than, let's say, the fat on your arms or your fat on your legs or the fat on your hips. Belly fat is a kind of fat that has a feed forward chemical process that creates more fat and instigates or stimulates the inflammation cascade in the body, which is a whole chemical process in and of itself. So just being overweight, particularly belly fat, that is going to be a situation of ongoing chronic inflammation. Now, do you have a life where you eat too much sugar? Do you drink too much alcohol? Those are both pro-inflammatory. Do you have ongoing rashes or rosacea, that redness in the cheeks, and just redness anywhere in your body? That is, for example, if you all look at your fingernails right now, at the base of your fingernail, right where the skin begins of the finger, it's just above the cuticle, that little rounded area there, if your fingernail right in that little rounded area above the nail is red, sometimes it's red and raised, but even if it's just red in more than 2 or 3 fingers, you've got ongoing inflammation. That's definitely a sign to me. I look at the hands and the fingers very carefully in my physical exam. So that's a sign for you there as well. Okay, so moving on. I see this has a delay when I take a little too much time. Oh, there we go. Now, so if having an overburdened immune system already and an overburdened inflammatory system is an issue, then obviously a basic concept is, how do we minimize our pre-existing immune burden and come to a much better immune balance? How do we do that? I'm going to start in now on 7 things. I'm limiting it to 7 things that you can assess and evaluate in your life right now. And if you do any one of these 7 things, you are going to put that, what do I want to call it? You're going to be putting that lever in an area that has a lot of leverage and can affect many other things, even if you deal with one of these 7. So pay attention as I move along to see how each of these actually affects another action step, and even doing one of them could be a high leverage point to improve your immune resilience. So here's number 1, folks. Discover your food intolerances. Notice I'm not saying the word allergies. Allergies is a whole different antibody system of response. And a lot of people know their allergies because those allergy responses are very immediate, profound, acute, and exaggerated. Some of those allergies are extreme enough to cause anaphylaxis, and people carry EpiPens for that. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking the slow, lower grade, sometimes slow responding up to 3-4 days later, therefore very difficult to find, discovering your food intolerances. Now, over to the right is a list of foods. That is completely covered by the pictures, everybody's pictures. Sorry. So I'm going to have to guess what it says. The first 7 foods before the parentheses, those are the 7 most common foods that, if somebody has a food intolerance, it is usually one of these 7 foods. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't have an intolerance to celery or chicken or apples. You could, but I never start there. I always start looking at what does the person eat every day in their normal, usual diet, and are any of those things the 7 foods? And of course, I couple that with symptoms and what their current complaints and concerns are with their health. And there are ways to discover food intolerances more scientifically. One of those is a blood test, and the other way is to do what's called an elimination challenge. Are both of these ways perfect and black and white and easy? No, they're not. Neither of those ways are perfect or black and white, and can give you some misconstrued results. So to discover food intolerances, I really consider it an art. I've been working with it for 30 years, and I pride myself in being a true expert in working with and discovering food intolerances with individuals. And you have to admit that food is something we put in our body multiple times a day, every single day. And if you're putting the wrong food into your body that your immune system is responding to, wow, we've got a foundation right there of an imbalanced immune situation, and an immune system that is weakening, that is over responsive, and that is overburdened. Your immune system, by the way, does not measure things by the tablespoon. It measures it by the molecule. So your immune system can sense a molecular level of presence of something that it deems as foreign and or dangerous for your particular body. So one person might be able to eat corn with no problems, but another person cannot. So it's a very tricky area, but discovering these intolerances and removing these foods from your diet, not 90%, not 99%, 100%, really makes a huge immune resilience difference in your life and your health. Let's move on to number 2. Let's see what that is. Sorry for the delay. Okay, here's number 2. Again, under the same concept as food intolerances, minimizing your existing immune burden of what's happening with you now. Minimize that burden so you don't weaken and overburden your immune system. That is to address high insulin and blood sugar issues. So, for example, this is a very, very big area. How do you know you have issues with this? Blood sugar that is too low or too high can be particularly high blood sugar can be responsible for mood issues, chronic fatigue, joint pain, chronic energy changes that are not solid and stable, but very labile in mood and or energy. High blood sugar issues lays down belly fat. Okay, so do you see now we're dovetailing on certain things. So if you just dealt with blood sugar alone, you're going to create a big leverage for a variety of areas. So how would you know where your blood sugar is at? Whatever practitioner that you work with who is allowed to order blood for you, they will very much always order a fasting glucose. That's great, but a fasting glucose is often normal by the time you go to the lab in the morning. But ask them to order a fasting insulin. So next time you see your practitioner who's going to order blood for you, make sure to have a fasting insulin drawn. You might get responses like, oh, we don't do that fasting. We only do that after you've eaten. Well, yes, it's commonly done there, but you must do it fasting because after a whole night of not eating any food, you really want to see, is my insulin still high? It's done its job. It's gotten your glucose down, so your glucose will always look normal in the morning. But is your insulin still high? And you don't have to be overweight to have high insulin. You can be a skinny mini little person and still have high insulin. So it's very, very important to understand if you have high insulin in the mornings. And of course, a hemoglobin A1C is important to have measured, even if you are not overweight and you're thin. Very important to at least measure that one time to see where it's at. What you can do yourself at home is start to understand your waist to hip ratio. You can Google that. There's lots of information on it. It's a very simple, sort of primitive test to do, but basically the idea is your waist should never be larger than your hips, even if you're a guy, right? So guys don't have that hourglass figure as much as women do. That's okay, but the waist to hip should at least be 1-to-1 for a guy and not larger in the waist than the hips. Right? So for women, it should definitely be smaller than the hips for sure. So just assessing that is a really great thing to do. And you can use a measuring tape and measure properly your hips over the gluteal buttock area to get the proper hip ratio, to get the proper hip circumference, and then measure your waist and really see what does that ratio look like in numbers and work to change that. Okay, moving on. Okay, there we go. I think I figured it out. All right. Another basic concept. Let's provide the building blocks for immune strength. And what are those building blocks when it comes to nutrients? Nutrient deficiencies are rampant among individuals. There are some deficiencies, I would even say most nutrient deficiencies are not known by the person who has them, because it won't be obvious to them that their vitamin D is very, very low. It won't be obvious to someone that their vitamin C is low. Unless you say to me, and I always ask this as an intake, do you have unexplained bruising? Do you bruise very, very easily? That's called capillary fragility, and that is a vitamin C deficiency, okay? But other than that, people don't necessarily know their zinc is low. A clue that you can look at to figure that out, look at your fingernails again, the good old nails, very informative. And do you have white spots on your nails? Now, it doesn't just mean a zinc deficiency, but it largely steers me in that direction of a potential for zinc deficiency. But it also makes me wonder very much that that person is not absorbing their minerals and other nutrients from their diet. So of course, I know your diet. I look at your nails. If I see white spots, I might pull out my liquid zinc and do a liquid zinc tally test to really see where is your taste level for this zinc. It's a particular test that I do to correlate other possibility for zinc deficiency. And I will always order a serum zinc as well, or red blood cell zinc. Now, how do you know if your glutathione is low, your quercetin is low? People don't know that, and rarely is that ever measured. And it's very different. You really can't measure a glutathione level and be accurate. So these are things and nutrients just to know. There's many more, of course, but I just put these on the list to understand and to realize that, are we not eating the foods that are full of these nutrients, or are we not absorbing the nutrients from the really good food that we eat? That's another and different problem. Or are we taking medications over the counter or prescription that depletes us of some of these nutrients? So for example, proton pump inhibitors, PPIs, in the world of antacids, those are notorious for depleting nutrients. You must have acid present on a normal level when you eat in your stomach in order to absorb many minerals, zinc, calcium, magnesium, to break down your protein into amino acids, B12. You must have acid present in the gut in order to transport and absorb B12. So acid is very, very important. And I know that television makes you think that a high acid issue and the need for an antacid is very, very important. But the truth is, it's the other way around. We actually have too little acid production as a common theme in the general public. So, and these other drugs like Tylenol, chronic Tylenol use will deplete your glutathione. Glutathione is the strongest, most powerful antioxidant we make in our bodies, but certain chronic conditions and medications will deplete it. So it's very, very important to know how glutathione plays a role in your immune system. I'm going to circle back around to that at the end. All right, so let's move on to number 4. The basic concept, again, providing a healthy playing field for your immune system and the immune system responsiveness. So did you know that 70% of your immune system lies in your gut? So when I ask you, where is your heart? Point to where in your body your heart is. All of you would know where to point. If I asked you, point to me where in your body is your brain, hopefully you're all pointing to the right direction, right? Okay. Point to where you think your stomach is. Okay. But if I say, point to your immune system, where are you guys going to point? Where is that really going to be? The truth is, no matter where you point in your body, from your toenail to your earlobe to your armpit, none of you would be wrong. Your immune system is in all of those places because the immune system is actually made up of chemistry and cells. And there are a few organs like, your tonsils and your spleen and et cetera. Those are involved as well. But you wouldn't be wrong pointing anywhere in the body because your immune chemistry and your immune cells are everywhere in your body. But 70% of that chemistry and cell makeup is in your digestive tract. So does it make sense to you that if I'm going to have a really strong, resilient immune system, I need to have a strong digestive tract that responds normally and digests my food well? So how would you maybe know that your digestive tract needs some work or it's not as optimal as it could be? Well, do you have a lot of gas, bloating, heartburn, hemorrhoids, abdominal pain, constipation, diarrhea, skin issues? Skin issues are very tied to the gut. Do you have fatigue, pain, or energy loss after you eat? So if you answer yes to any of this, your gut needs some help. And just working with your gut is going to play a very big role in strengthening your immune system. But when we talk about working with the gut, sometimes what happens is, there's some foods that you're intolerant to that are coming into your system, and those food intolerances need to be removed, and that's going to give you a healthier gut. Okay, so again, here we start this overlap, all right? And oftentimes when one discovers a food intolerance, gets rid of it, not only do the gut symptoms improve, but guess what? Weight loss happens purely from getting rid of a food intolerance. I'm not saying 10 out of 10 people, but for some people, quite a bit. So what are other ways? I mean, these are digestive symptoms and signs here that people complain of and have. But, if you work with a practitioner who is a functional medicine practicing practitioner like myself, we can test you in certain ways to actually understand the integrity of your gut lining. We're looking for something called zonulin and in the stool. And when there's too much zonulin, it means your gut lining has broken down. And the colloquial term for that is leaky gut. Some of you have, I'm sure, heard of that term, leaky gut. And I often say to people who don't know what that is, it's like if you look at the tiles and the grout in your shower, and the tiles are loosening and the grout is falling out, that would be a leaky gut. The zonulin being part of the grout, it's falling out and into your digestive tract and being passed with your stool, and we can measure that zonulin. So there is a way to kind of test for that. But nevertheless, these are very, very important things. Healing the gut is key. And I think one time in BNI, I said to my group when we were meeting in person, and I loved the look on some people's faces, because I said, do know the gut is the seat of everything. Now get this, listen very closely. Not only can your immune system not be healthier than your gut, but your brain and its performance cannot be healthier than your gut. Your gut is the dominant area to improve in order to have a healthy brain and healthy immune system. So that's a really important one. Okay. Number 6. Yes, was that? Oh, no. See, we went too far. All right. Number 5, reduce toxin exposure. So now we're shifting a little bit from foods to toxins and items in your home, etc. But toxin exposure is everywhere. It's not any one person's fault. We are all exposed to things, as we know now, in the air, the smoky fires that we had, things in our self-care products, toxins in our cleaning, home cleaning products, items that we use in the kitchen. Toxins are absolutely everywhere. They're very hard to avoid, but you really, really want to reduce your toxic exposure, because toxic burden and immune weakness and immune systems crashing is often because of a minute exposure of a toxin over a long period of time. It's like a drop of water dripping into a glass, one little drop at a time. It takes a very long time for that glass of water to fill up, doesn't it? But when it really finally gets to the brim, all it takes is one more drop of water, and the water spills over the edge of the glass. That is called an overburdened system, toxic overload. So it might have taken a really long time. Those drops of water over time, you're not even sure what they're made of. It was a minute exposure that you would never even know you were exposed to. But it's very important to understand the concept that it's that minute exposure over a very long period of time that finally creates a toxic burden overload and crashes the immune system and weakens it tremendously. So we have Rowena Finnegan on our audience today, and Rowena is, an expert in healthy furnishings for your home. That is a beautiful example of somebody who focuses their life and their work in nothing but healthy furnishings for your home. I'm going to talk about some other things.
And Rowena is going to be our coffee chat presenter next week. So we get
so
to
stay tuned.
Exactly.
Do not miss Rowena next week. She is a wealth of information when it comes to that. Now, I'm going to mention a couple of things that you might not go out tomorrow and buy a brand new couch, but you're maybe going to do that after you talk to Rowena, and I'd recommend it. But what you might do today, when we're done here, and tonight, okay, before Netflix, if you have any plastic in your home, for example, plastic containers, what we used to call or still call Tupperware in your kitchen, all of that must go to the garbage, in the garbage. No Tupperware, right? So that Tupperware and that plastics, it's all full of bisphenol A. Bisphenol A, if you Google it, you're going to get thousands and thousands of documentation about how bisphenol A is an endocrine disruptor, how it even has carcinogenic properties, etc. So that alone, any plastic food containers should not be in your home. And you're going to get online and you're going to go to whatever Costco, Target, Bed Bath & Beyond, the Container Store, and buy a set of glass containers. Yes, they have plastic lids, I know that, but you don't have to fill it full with food. so that the food touches the plastic lid. And if you're going to warm the container up in that glass and some warming appliance, that's fine, but not with the plastic lid on it. Okay. So the absolute, anyone listening right now, if there's something you can do to minimize your immune burden from toxic exposures, never, if any of you do this, never, ever, 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 ever again, put plastic in a microwave. So you might be confused as to, you might know the obvious. One should never put Tupperware in a microwave ever. That leaches the carcinogenic and endocrine disrupting chemicals in a very, very big way right into your food. Very, very bad to do that. Now, the other thing that what was I going to tell you about the plastics in the microwave? Yeah, no plastics in the microwave. Of course, all of your water bottles, try not to get that soft plastic water bottle and leave it in the car and then drink from it. That's like, forget it. That's not an okay one either. Another piece is non-stick pans. So Teflon, right? So I'm not talking about a safe non-stick pan, but if any of you own a non-stick frying pan that is really literally still like that Tefal or some kind of a Teflon, that needs to go in the garbage can today. And I remember my favorite pan I used to make eggs. And when I learned that the chemicals that make Teflon nonstick is highly carcinogenic and highly, highly toxic, I took that pan and I went out to my garbage and I just was like, oh my God, I couldn't believe I was letting go of my favorite pan to make eggs in. But I promptly went out and bought another pan, and Scan Pan. There are many of them out there now, but Scan Pan is one of my favorite. I like the professional line, the pro line of Scan Pan. It has a nice metal handle, etc. And it's a lovely, lovely nonstick pan. So that's another thing to look at. Our self-care products, there's many toxic chemicals that the EWG.org, environmentalworkinggroup.org, will tell you if your self-care product has toxic ingredients in it. Go to that site, plug in your product, and it will tell you if it has toxins in it. I wrote parabens just as one of many, many, many toxins in self-care products, and definitely, don't use anything with parabens in it. Now, who knows, unmute yourself if you know where in your home you have polyvinyl chloride, and what is the main thing that we have that is polyvinyl chloride, and and Rowena, you don't get to answer this because you may already know. And when heat hits that polyvinyl chloride, it off gases in a big way. Anybody know what we have in the home that's polyvinyl chloride?
I do.
Tell me.
It's in the shower curtains.
Yes, very good. Is that Maria?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, good job, Maria. Excellent, excellent. So if you've ever bought a new plastic shower curtain and unpacked it, whoa, you don't remember that smell? You need like a gas mask to like unpack that thing. But the truth is, you should never buy a plastic shower curtain ever. And when the heat of the shower hits that thing is off gassing in a big, big way. So reducing toxin exposures is a very big, any one of these areas I could talk to you about for 2-3 hours each, but I just am introducing the concepts to you so you can start to look at, okay, I'm going to get rid of my Tupperware and I'm going to buy the glass stuff. And yeah, my pan is Teflon. Start to work with that stuff. All of it matters. You don't want that glass to get full when it comes to your toxins. Okay, so number 6, increase your sleep. And I put these together: increase sleep, reduce stress. Because when you do increase your sleep and get enough sleep, you really are helping to reduce your stress. Sleep boosts that powerful antioxidant called glutathione that we all make. Sleep and adequate and long sleep, it boosts your glutathione. That is critical. And at the end here, I'm going to show you how critical glutathione is to fight viruses. Now, what does the second word say there, Bob, underneath is, drain your brain toxins. Yes, drain your brain toxins. Everywhere in our body has toxins and inflammation products and all kinds of things just from our daily living, breathing, and metabolism. We produce our own toxins, but we also have to get rid of them. The brain has its own lymphatic system, and that lymphatic system works primarily 95% at night when you sleep. So if you're up and functioning and thinking and working, that lymphatic system is not draining at night. So your sleep is really, really, really critical. Reduce your adrenal stress and the cortisol hormones, of course, and calm the inflammation. That is all very important. And look at the leverage point that increasing your sleep has. It will help you not gain weight. Okay. And so when we sleep, let me put it this way. When we don't sleep enough, we flip a normal hormonal ratio of leptin and ghrelin. Leptin is the hormone that tells us we're full, we're satiated, you've had enough to eat, you can stop now. Ghrelin tells us we are hungry, it's time to eat. When we don't sleep enough, even by 2 hours, 1 or 2 hours of not enough sleep over time, you will start to flip that ratio. And that's not something you can control or help. That is a scientific fact. Just Google sleep deprivation and weight loss, or loss of sleep and weight gain. You will see that there will be a 2-pound weight gain for many people every week or even every month with a chronic loss of sleep. And it's due to many things, but when this hormonal ratio flips and your leptin is low, that means you're never satisfied, or if you feel like it's time to eat all day long. I've come home from business trips very late on a very, very late flight in the past, and then had to wake early for a morning meeting. I've only slept, 5 or 6 hours, which is totally not my thing. I cannot stop eating the next day. I am just eating from that sleep loss. And I know I can feel it. It's not because I'm wanting to, it's that hormonal flip is making me feel like I'm never satiated with what I'm eating. So paying attention to your sleep is very, very important from so many things, because there comes the dominoes of increased inflammation, increased belly fat, weight gain, high adrenal stress, etc. Okay, adrenal stress is a whole other topic. Gentlemen, if you're listening, please look down at your shins. Do you have hair on your shins? If you don't have hair on your shins, I know your adrenals are already too high. Okay, your cortisol is too high. All right, let's go to the next thing. This is the last one. Again, back to the concept of minimizing your current immune burden. And this is a very, very big topic. So, this is like 2-3 days of lecturing for me, but discover and treat your infections. That's very big for me to say that, but I had to add it because I get people in my practice who have an odd constellation of symptoms. It doesn't fit a diagnosis. All their previous doctors don't know what to do with them. They can't figure out what's wrong with them. And somebody needs to be looking at, does this person have a chronic viral overload? Do they have a bacterial overload? Do they have chronic yeast going on in their body? Do you have yeasty, fungusy toenails? Make sure you look at that. Do you have chronic or episodically recurring UTIs, urinary tract infections? Women, do you have recurring vaginal yeast infections? Do you have little red, crusty, or inflamed areas under the breasts, in the armpits, around the belly button, in the groins of the hips? These are all areas where yeast loves to grow. So just even a chronic yeast infection completely burdens your immune system, okay? And of course, do you have mold toxins? That's very, very, very important to look at. Now let's finish up with this. I know I'm going a little over time. I'm sorry, Bob. So these are some immune nutrient must-haves. And I'm saying this now with COVID in mind, okay? But even without COVID in mind, I think you would all agree, yes, I want a strong immune system. Everyone is thinking COVID right now, and of course that makes sense. But in the wintertime, it's also flu season, right? Non-COVID flu season. So these are all very important for cold and flu season. These are all very important anytime you might be around someone that has had a cold or flu, any of these things. So it's not just COVID, but with COVID in mind, I'm going to tell you a couple of things of why some of these things are extremely important and very, very COVID specific. So vitamin D, you've all heard of these things, perhaps. I've already mentioned glutathione. NAC stands for N-acetylcysteine. and it is an amino acid type of nutrient, which means protein, and N-acetylcysteine is the building block for glutathione, okay? Glutathione is a cysteine-bearing compound, so N-acetylcysteine gives one the building blocks to make more glutathione. And of course, vitamin C, quercetin, I'm about to tell you more about now. Zinc, of course, I think a lot of you have heard about zinc now. That is a direct antiviral nutrient. And of course, vitamin A. So let's move on now into really talking about quercetin. And I'm picking it out because some of you might know all about it because you're staying up on the information, and some of you may have never heard about it. So what is quercetin? It's a flavonoid. That's a group of compounds that are in certain fruits and vegetables particularly, and very high quercetin foods would be onions, apples, berries, broccoli, citrus, leafy greens, very high in quercetin. Now, I just pulled a quote out from an article, a medical article on quercetin and the SARS-CoV-2. So we all see the picture of the coronavirus with all those spikes coming out, right? Everyone has seen that, and we call those spike proteins. So quercetin binds to the SARS-CoV-2 spike protein, one of those little things coming out, and that spike protein normally gets received on human cells in what's called the ACE receptor. And there's a little docking station in that receptor. It's like parking your car in your garage. This spike protein parks itself in this little docking station of the ACE receptor in human cells. Now, how quercetin helps is quercetin attaches to the spike protein and it blocks that parking of the spike protein into the docking station of the ACE receptor. And when it blocks that, now the virus cannot replicate itself. So can you see the importance of quercetin? Quercetin, it is a direct, not only anti-inflammatory, all of my patients with allergies are on high levels of quercetin, but it is a direct antiviral nutrient. Very, very, very important to be taking quercetin right now. Now, and eating a lot of onions, etc. The other thing that quercetin does is it acts as a channel maker. So a little pore or channel is made by quercetin, which allows zinc to go inside the cell. When zinc goes inside your human cell, that is where zinc now becomes, it has a very direct antiviral aspect. Again, not allowing a virus to replicate. Viruses, remember, viral infections are not outside our cells. Viruses get inside our cells. So when I am treating someone with high viral titers, whether that's Epstein-Barr, herpes, cytomegalovirus, any of those viruses that I measure for, I give them treatments and nutrients that are going to go inside their cells. So vitamin C is beautiful, right? It's water soluble. Our cells float in vitamin C. Lovely, that's excellent. But your vitamin C must also be liposomal, meaning it's a fat surrounded molecule of vitamin C, because that fat surrounded vitamin C can now get through the membrane of your cells, which is fat. Fat can go through fat. And now your vitamin C gets inside your cell and attacks the viruses inside the cell. So quercetin, not only does it prevent the spike protein from attaching to a human cell, but it also makes a channel so that zinc can go inside the cell and have its direct action on being antiviral. So we call that a zinc ionophore. Fancy name simply to say it's a zinc channel maker, okay, a zinc tunnel maker. Okay, so very important to know about quercetin. There's many types of it. Depending on the type will change how many milligrams you take, but no worries, just wanting to know about quercetin. And a beautiful thing is you make a nice, lovely meal that has onions in it, and great to take your zinc after you've eaten your onions, because now your onions made your channel for your zinc, and now you're gonna take your oral zinc. All right, and this is just a slide simply to show you that quercetin and COVID-19 is a very hot topic right now. It is all over the medical literature, and I just threw up some very quick titles of medical articles to show you that this is not in the health food world. This is in the medical world about quercetin. And lastly, I'm going to stop here with just telling you again, in this journal called Infectious Disease, highly reputed journal in the medical world, look at the title of this article. endogenous, which means inside your body deficiency of glutathione as the most likely cause of serious manifestations and death from COVID-19 patients. Okay. This is a very, very important article, and it's something that I want you to see. I could give you articles on everything I've spoken of, but I just wanted you to see this because everything I'm telling you is not from an airy fairy, I'm just going to talk to you about supplements. Everything that I do, everything that I say, everything that I'm trained in, and my 40 years of work is all done looking at research, looking at double-blind placebo-controlled trials, looking at what is really true in the human population of results, okay? Sometimes it takes a little while for research to catch up with what is really happening, but this is one of those things. Glutathione is now caught up with the fact that it is critical that everyone is taking glutathione of some sort. So I just wanted you to see that. And thank you so much for listening. I hope I didn't overwhelm you. I tried to keep it lay person-ish, but with a little medical thrown in. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them if I can.